and welcome to Scrapbooking Station. In this video, it's all about creating a batik look. And it's more about what you do with those panels once you create them. So, grab some clear embossing powder, your smudger of choice, and juice up your versamark stamp pad. So we're going to look at all the projects that you saw in the title photo, and we'll get started. So I'm beginning with the basic batik technique. So I've got a single side of pattern paper, and this comes from Paper Wishes. The pattern is actually Evanstown. Now this comes as double-sided, and I don't want that dark orange showing through. We're going to talk more about that later. So all I did was take that image and copy it onto some plain copy paper. Now, your paper needs to be thin enough so that you can see this once you heat emboss. The stamps I've used are actually predominantly homemade. So I've taken Sizzix Big Z dies and innies from other stamps and made those, but basic shapes, something solid. So I want to get those on here using clear embossing powder and versamark. As I said, if you haven't re-inked your versamark pad, now would be a good time to do that. The other thing you want to do, this is going to be a panel on a scrapbook page. It's actually going to look like some kind of specialty pattern paper when I'm done. But because batik is kind of a distressed look by its nature, you want to go ahead and edge whatever edge you're going to do on your paper pattern before you start embossing and crimping and all that kind of good stuff. So now, clear embossed images are on here. Now you just want to crunch it. And I'm just going to keep crunching until I get a really tight ball. Okay, so that was my initial crunch. I kind of unfurled it a little bit. Now I want to start from another end and crunch it again. Okay, in this next step, I've kind of flattened that out a little bit, but not too much, because I want some of these crinkles to go ahead and peek through. I can always kind of tweak it, but I'm just going to add color at this point. I'm using sponges. You can use a blending tool of any sorts. So I've got 3 colors: soft suede, more mustard, and pumpkin pie. At the same time, I'm going to add some copper, because I know copper is going to be in this layout, and so I'm just going to use a cosmetic sponge, and this is Liquid Pearls, the copper pearl. So I'm going to do that sparingly, just to add a little bit. And now we'll be back with the finished, but totally not flattened piece. So the panel is as finished as it needs to be at this point, because things need to set and dry. A couple things, I work with water-based inks, and so if I need a smoother look, which I did with this pumpkin pie, I just took my sponge and dipped it in some water. If you work in alcohol-based inks, of course, rubbing alcohol would do that as well. The other thing, when I use my perfect pearls, I mean, sometimes I tamped it on, and then other times I actually drew lines around the shape, because this Liquid Pearls can be more dimensional. I don't want it two-dimensional, because this is going to be kind of a top overhang over my page. So let me get the rest of that put together, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm in pretty close for this first project, because there's a couple things I noticed, and I want you to notice. First off, where you've got darker inks, the image is much more striking. Also, the use of metallic really worked out nicely. The other thing I want you to look at is, I don't know if you can tell, but behind this, remember I used that light pattern paper. So behind every place where I've got clear embossing powder, you can really see that pattern show up. Also, these super solid larger images are nice. They're cool, but I really like the chevrons, so something with a little breakup. So anyway, we're going to take those things with us. Let me pull back a little bit. So I've added a couple of things. This is some Crumb Cake tulle, which actually I inked and added just a little bit of the Perfect Pearls powder. Made a little band, adding some dazzle stickers all over the place. I've got some cutouts. Obviously I use a circle for this piece, backed and matted those, but this 11 labels and trims. So I've got a couple of the labels used in the title and in my journaling, and then some of the trims here. So anyway, really pretty and a great first project. So now we're going to move into the next. Now in the second project, I'm going to make a background for a card front. And so what I've got is a piece of printed computer paper. So this was back in the day when you used to do newsletters and whatnot using your computer, and I have tons of it. So what I want to do is kind of create a torn look, and so I've kind of torn the edges of this piece. The other thing I want to do is kind of ease up on some of this embossing because it kind of overtakes the whole card. Now, I've separated this pattern into a top, which is going to have the batik look, and then the bottom, which I've also copied and printed on cardstock, this piece that I want to kind of cross over. So I think it'll become clearer. I'm more concerned about where this is going to go. And again, I kind of want to have those edges done or torn or cut or whatever I'm going to do before I start coloring. And so I'm going to have something like this. I might need another little batik orange in there or a batik circle in there. And these stamps are just kind of moved to a not totally solid stamp because I like that look. So once you color, and I've done this on a piece that I'm going to be using here. I'm making 4 cards actually, because once you start batiking, you might as well batik a lot. And let me bring in this guy, because I've kind of finished this guy. These are just a bunch of ink colors, Stampin' Up! Colors using the mini blending tool to kind of get those colors on there. But notice that this guy's brighter white than this one is. And I didn't mention this on that last project. This is a damp paper towel, and if I were to wipe off, it's going to pick up some ink, but it's going to pick off ink off the clear embossed portions. And don't forget you've got some background or some color on this pattern, and so you might not see total white there. But anyway, much brighter look. So let me finish that. I'm going to put them on the cards and we'll take a look at the finished pieces. So these are the first 2 I want to look at, and I added a couple things, which is why I showed you that photo. First off, it looks very much like a collage look. So once I put the patterned computer paper down and then added my batik kind of crossover topper, I needed to add some lightweight material, and all I took was some tissue paper and backed the entire card front. This is a 6 by 4.5, so spaced it out a little bit, and that guy's a little bit chunky. This one is on a 5 1/4 or 5.5 by 4 1/4. So got that on there, and while I was at it, I took another lightweight material. This is paper twine cording from my road. I got it through Paper Wishes, but you can get it online also. And when it unfurls, it looks something like this. This is the yellow. I used the white and just used the same ink colors. So really cool. Let me go ahead and open these up because I did do the insides. So this one, since I was copying and printing, I took an image and put it on cardstock, so copied that and used some of my inked paper twine for this. This is kind of a combination of the tissue paper with the paper twine cording on top. And yeah, you can stamp it. So it's my birthday fishes. This one is an embossed folder, so just kind of coordinating color. Now, on this guy, kind of raised it up a little bit, got a little more crazy on the inside. Kind of looks like seaweed, I think, hanging down. Anyway, more birthday fishes. So I want to kind of support this whole collage thing. On the other 2, I went ahead and started adding some more collage elements. And so I took some, I already put them up, but this is encrusted jewels. And anytime I need something weird, this works out really well. And some twine also, or at least pulled through a couple strands of twine. So this is really cool. Let me go ahead and open up. Kind of same thing on the inside for the larger card. I also made one smaller. So anyway, really neat project. I want to show you something that's finished now. So if you like putting things under glass, so whether you're doing little keepsakes or you're matting photos, this is a really great technique because there's a lot of look with a very little profile. Now I do want to share, when you're using pattern paper, This is actually the pattern paper that is behind my clear embossing. You're not going to get those whites, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, if you've got pattern paper, let me move in really close because there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Okay, moving in super close, that really didn't work. But this paper actually has a barcode on one end, and I can see that showing through my clear embossing. So keep that in mind as you're creating your projects. Also, if I would have used a pattern with at least a little white and maybe a little more light pink, I think these flowers would have showed up more. And then the last thing is, if you want to kind of mellow out that whole craftsy collage look, adding solids works really well. So I've got my stamped letters. They're actually backed by some gold and then some of the same color cardstock. So, like I said, it makes a really nice keepsake. The other thing, you don't have a lot of solid stamps. There are some out there now, but more popular are these two-step, three-step, and now they're calling them layered stamps. So in this one, they're not actually solids, but they are part of that layering stamp set. And then also I took those outlines, and once everything was done, I flattened it out, added some outline images. So all really neat techniques. And now I want to talk to some different embossing patterns that will work with this, and so let's look at the next project. In this Batik project, what I'm doing is a background for a calendar page, and so I'm going to introduce a couple more things. Well, first off, I'm going to use an all-over green pattern, and so I know when I clear emboss, and I've just got a solid, or somewhat, mostly solid, stamp from this collection. So I've got something like a clover or a shamrock. This is actually for March. But again, when I'm using an all-over colored paper, when I clear emboss, that green is going to come through. And so what I've done is use some different embossing patterns. So I'm bringing in white embossing patterns so I have white in my finished piece. The other thing I'm using here is a glitter. This is actually, no, a glitter embossing powder. This is iridescent ice from Stampin' Up. And so that turned out really nice. And then I've got another one from Stampendous, and this is pearl luster. So it's kind of a slick. So I'm sparkling where I say sparkle, and I'm shining where I say shine. And this is using a stencil. So yeah, you've got a juicy versamark pad. Sure, you can stencil. And just be sure to put that in really hot water. You're going to have to use some sort of soft scrub brush to get that versamark off of there. Anyway, I just did an all-over garden green on top of this. And let's see what happens. And so what I've got is the sparkle shows up actually really good. You have to probably see it up close and personal. Now this pearl luster was a bit thick, and so it cracked and actually chipped off. So anyway, you might want to do a little sample with whatever embossing powder you're going to use before you actually do it on your finished piece. Now I'm going to eventually attach a calendar, but there's one more property I want to show you. Okay, now this is really cool, and it's really good timing for Halloween, because I did this piece. This was actually one of my first Batik pieces, and I did it on a purple paper and used purple ink and water, so it actually moved behind the embossing. And I was carrying it over to figure out what I was going to do with it. And I noticed that when the light was shining through, it was daytime, you get this sort of effect. So this is all clear embossing powder, and I thought, how cool for a window hanging. So I made these. Actually, I made two of them. Let me pull this through. Again, just kind of using solid stamps and clear embossing. And I want to show you what happens with this, because the white, you're not going to see that so much. Of course, the clear embossing, you see it. Sparkle works great. And the shine, actually it does shine up a little bit. And so what I was thinking, of course, this is a great Halloween look. So if you wanted to make Halloween wall hangers. And the other thing I thought, what if you were to take a piece and wrap it around a tea light holder and light up your candle from the back. And so this is going to look something like this. Now I did use the wrong black ink. I used archival black, and so it didn't clear off of my clear embossing powder so well. So remember to use your water-based inks for this. But anyway, the last thing I'm going to show you is a picture of this in the dark, and it's really cool. But imagine, I mean, if you got backlit really good. Like I said, wall hangings. And I am going to finish up these calendars and show you that as well. So anyway, lots of fun stuff to try. I hope you give this technique a go. And thank you for watching.